record on both again. I'm still having some iPad weird stuff going on. All right, so hopefully everybody, if you wanted a handout, you got a handout. I did add a few things. First time I've done that since we printed it. I just felt like we needed to say a few more things as we kind of conclude this. So I did add a few things. But if it's in addition to what's on your paper, put it in italics and you'll know that it's added. But the PDF that Matthew puts up there tomorrow, it'll be this version right here. So our disclaimers that we always give, we are talking about mental health, and anytime we're talking about mental health, just remember this is an informational class, an informational video and presentation only. Please seek professional immediate help for any life-threatening situations. And this class will be put up on that YouTube channel afterwards, and then Matthew links it on Church Track over there along with the PDF, so just be mindful of that. So we're going to talk about taking this forward, okay? It's the last true class, so we're going to talk about what we do now. So have you ever wondered why it is very rare that people who go on a diet very rarely stay on it for life? We can talk about they just want to enjoy food, and some of that may be true, but this phenomenon carries over to other things too. Things are temporary. People that set an intention to make any change in their life almost always go back to the familiar eventually. See New Year's resolutions for our best example as human beings. A very scary example of that is, if you've ever worked in mental health, you know this. Most kids that are raised in an abusive and or addicted home end up living that same life. The ones that do not repeat this behavior are brave humans, and they should be celebrated more than people who win championships or awards. But we don't do that, but we should. They're going against the statistics. So my question to you is, what are you going to do now? Which one are you going to be? Are you going to be the abused child that goes back and carries on like you didn't have any realizations during these 6 weeks about the insanity of all this? Or are you going to be one of the few that actually carries this forward to live the life that God has brought you here to live and bring about the new earth? So if you want to be the one that carries this forward, you must wield your intention and your intention continuously and purposely, as we've discussed throughout. So let's talk about some non-negotiables. If that's what you want to do. If you're going to intend to carry this forward, let's lay out what I like to call non-negotiables. Your mindfulness practices where the intention and attention are clear. This should be and can be meditation. This should also just be being mindful, paying attention to real life as you are doing things. Consciously slowing down is important here. Observing your thoughts as much as you can all day long. Without that, you will never carry this forward. If you do not separate from and challenge your thoughts, everything we have talked about hinges on this. Now, I did add this. This is not on your handout. If you will go back to the practice that we did in week 2, where we took your attention to inside your hands, okay, if you were here for that or if you watched the video, you felt them from the inside, so to speak. Didn't think about them, you just took your attention there and felt them. That's called, or what I call, the inner body, okay? It's your life energy that God breathed into you and kind of stays connected with you. So one thing I'm going to encourage you is take your attention to your inner body during your meditation and all day long as much as possible. This will make the biggest difference of anything you can do, I assure you. This will keep you present more than anything, and it takes attention away from the thoughts so you can see them when they happen, because you're in your body, not in your mind. So when you stay in your inner body, when the thoughts come up in your mind, you can see them more clearly because that's not where you are. That's not where your attention is. Okay? When you're doing your box breathing, see if you can feel your inner body from the inside at the same time. Go inside the skin directly with your attention and feel it. Don't think about it. Feel it. Do this all day long while you're listening to people, working, watching TV, reading, whatever. Have some attention inside your body, but also listening to what someone's saying or what you're working on. The more you do it, the quicker you will be able to feel it when you go there with your attention. And I know it sounds in the Southern Bible Belt, it sounds weird. I'm gonna be honest and say that on the front end, but it'll make the biggest difference to you if you spend time doing that. All right, continuing with some non-negotiables. When you observe your thoughts, you will learn and undo your conditioning. You'll dive into yourself and therefore understand yourself and everyone else. Again, I'm going to say free write journaling, like as I like to call it, may be and will be a part of this, especially when you're going through something hard or challenging. Free write journaling is very, very helpful there. But again, burn it. Get rid of it, because if not, you won't free write, because you'll be worried somebody will find it. You need to just get it all out, however ugly it is. You will also have what I call truth realizations. I write these down as you start separating from your thoughts, and as you start paying attention to your thoughts and the emotions underneath it all. You're going to have some realizations. You just are, about life. I don't know how to describe it, just like truths about life. I would encourage you to take note of those in some form or fashion. I keep a note on my phone. And then what I like to do is once in the morning, usually before I meditate, I read those. It's just kind of like a reminder. Now, these are not affirmations. A lot of you have done self-improvement, heard about self-improvement stuff. I'm not talking about affirmations. Affirmations are some sort of future belief and hope. That's not what I'm talking about here. These are present moment, just realizations about life. Okay? All right, you must take time to just be. We talked about that a lot week 3. This will happen naturally as you meditate and separate from your thoughts, but at first, you will probably have to make yourself do it. And then, and this is key, you must set an intention to look underneath and behind everything. Let that sink in for a second. Underneath and behind. Do not look at the act only. Look at the reason for the act with you and with everyone else. This is one of the main ways that Jesus taught in the first century and blew people's minds. Think about it. He didn't just say, think about the Sermon on the Mount. He didn't just say, don't do this, do this. He said that sometimes, but then he said, why? And what's underneath it, like in your heart and those kind of things. That was radical back then. And that's a lot of what blew people's minds. So I did add something here. You will struggle with which thoughts to engage with. Okay, what I mean by that is which thought can just go on by and I don't got to spend any time with it, just whatever. Or I might need to look at that thought. That thought might be telling me something. You're going to struggle with that, especially at the beginning. I still do. It's very challenging. But here's where the key is. It's what I just said. Look at the motivation of every thought and emotion that is bothering you. And that will always help you find what thoughts to engage with and then which ones to just let be. Go underneath it. Go behind it. Find the motivation. Why am I having that thought? Where did it really come from? What does it really mean? Question it. Go underneath it. And then it'll get easier. You'll figure out which ones. And then what you'll also see as you do this longer is you'll see the pattern of thoughts. You'll have the same ones over and over again for years. It's like an old record player in your head. And if you can just pay attention to it, and some of those you can catch, and you're like, oh yeah, there's that again. And you can just pass on by. You ain't got to spend any time with that one and just go on by. But then there'll be some that just, they're eating at you. You know they're eating at you. And that's the one you might want to look behind and underneath and figure out, okay, do I need to engage with this or not? When I say engage, I just mean ask further questions about that thought. That's all I mean. The other thing, you must replace watching TV, social media, and things like this with spiritual reading. Okay, I'm not the first Bible class teacher to ever say that, right? It does not mean you cannot watch TV or be on Instagram or Facebook or whatever, but spiritual reading must be your intention. Seek ye first. Honestly, when I have to work a lot extra, I may not turn on the TV for weeks. Now, I'm not just saying, ooh, I'm so great, kind of touting myself. I have just, over time, come to the realization that if my time is limited outside of work, the things that I'm going to do, meditate, read, talk to my family, work out, and listen to inspiring music. I'm not going to do anything else. Okay? So you've got to set time, set an intention to do that. You must ask God for help to fully submit to Him. That's the key. That's week 4. You must ask for help to allow things to just be as they are to begin with, and to look for doors that He's opened for you. Don't go grab life, receive life. Do you understand that perception difference? Don't go grabbing at it, receive it, and then respond. You must intend to listen, and this one's hard for us. You must intend to listen to your gut and not your head all the time. This does not mean that you do not evaluate things and think things through. Those of you who know me, as an Enneagram 1 clinical, I think everything through. My calendar is always perfect and complete. That gives me peace. Some people, that causes stress. I could tell you some interesting conversations with Scotty Smith about that as a set. However, for me, it's not in my head any longer. It's on a calendar, and I don't have to think about it. So it's stress relieving for me. For other people, it stresses them out. That's okay. But take the time to think things through. Take the time to evaluate. Take the time to do your research. But then stop. At some point, you just got to let the answer come to you from your gut. You just know the answer. This has been, I will be honest and say, this has probably been the biggest change for me in the 10 years, besides the way my nervous system feels. This is probably the biggest change for me in the last 10 years, because I didn't believe, I couldn't even fathom intuition or knowing. That all just sounded stupid to me, and like, whatever, honestly. And so then, now, that's how big decisions, I just want to feel the answer, know the answer, as opposed to just totally using my brain the whole time. I'm going to use my brain at the beginning to do a lot of research, but then at some point I'm going to let it go. I use the word, I need to let that simmer for a second. Sarah Kate hates when I say that, because she knows that means she's not getting an answer right now. Sleep on it. Yeah, sleep on it. Yeah, I use the word simmer so it can just come up. All right, here's another something I added. That's probably tough to read, but I think you're going to get a lot out of this, and this is what I really felt like I needed to add this week. This is probably a good place to discuss the difference between functional thoughts and psychological thoughts, and clock time and psychological time. Okay? So functional thoughts are how we do something. Okay, more like steps to function in this world. I need to type that number. I need to go get the bread to make the sandwich. Whatever. It's functional. It is steps. It's what your brain is actually built for. It's why you have it. Okay? Psychological thoughts are always adding a judgment to something. Okay? They're always commenting about it. Okay? Sports fans, this might be an analogy for you. So you watch a game, you got the play-by-play guy, and then you got the color commentary guy. Your play-by-play guy is just supposed to give you facts. It's the third quarter, there's 3 minutes left, they have 7 fouls, right? They're 3 for 20 from the three-point line, whatever. And your other guy's commenting about the defense and the strategy and what the coach is doing. Should he take this player out? Should he not? Right? It's kind of how your mind works. You got the functional thoughts and then the psychological thoughts. So the issue is, it would be great if there was just this great separation between the two, right? It's not how it works. They overlay with each other, okay? It's constantly doing this. When you have no mindfulness practice, when you're normal, that's what it's constantly doing. So think back to, and the psychological thoughts, let's just be honest with you, 90% of them are damaging and negative. They just are. So the problem here is, so for instance, go back to, you typed a number into a spreadsheet, something I do a lot. It's fine if my mind just said type the number into the spreadsheet. That's probably not what it said too. It probably said also type that number, and you better get it right, because if you don't type that number correctly, people you're going to send it out to think you are not good, and if they think you're not good, you're not worthy. Here's the problem. If I could just stop at type the number, no problem. But my mind takes it to a psychological thought where I judge myself, and I haven't even done anything wrong yet. It's predicting I might where in the future. Okay? So, separating from your thoughts is the key to it, because then you can start seeing them functional versus psychological a little bit more, and they start separating a little bit more. Does that make sense? Small increments. Likewise, using clock time, the clock time, what we all are familiar with, is totally helpful and necessary, right? You can't function in this world without clock time. This means I have to be at the church building by 9 a.m. for Ryan's class. Or next October, we're going on a family trip. Totally fine. We have to have that to function in the world. When we talk about being present and not being in the past or future, we're talking about psychological time. That's where you see everything through your past conditioning, and then you look to the future for feeling complete. If this would not have happened, I would be at peace now. If this will happen, I will finally be at peace. That's psychological time. So let's take that example that was innocent. We need to be at the building by 9 a.m. for Ryan's class. Very innocent, right? Well, here's what we do with it. We add a psychological thought to it where we say, well, if I am late for Ryan's class, everyone will see that and think I do not care about being mindful or God. And then they will think, I am not worthy, and what if they are true? And it's an example. So that's psychological time that keeps you from the present moment and often gets in the way of you just simply trying to use clock time. So again, what's the key? Separating from those thoughts so you can try to see the gap, the difference, the divide.
You mean if I get to church late, because that's always was in my head, because I don't want everybody to think I don't care.
Might be a thought you have. Might not. But yes, that's where it takes place, in the head. You don't know what everybody else is thinking in their head. You just think you do. So let's talk about results now. So those were some non-negotiable, and these are some results you can see if you commit to the non-negotiables. So we've talked about results a few times, but I like to call these these are automatic. You don't go for these. These are not a goal. These just start happening. Okay? So, and this is the big one for me originally, and this is why I did the whole thing to begin with. Your default setting will change from fight or flight to the parasympathetic state. That's another word for the relaxed state, talking about your nervous system. So you may wake up one day, as I did, and realize your nerves just don't feel on fire all the time anymore. As opposed to that feeling normal, the fight or flight state is actually what feels unnormal to you now. So, when you are in fight or flight, you know what to do now because it is not normal anymore. You automatically set an intention to control your attention and be mindful because you've lost it. If you're in fight or flight, you've lost your attention. You're totally caught up in the thought and then the emotion. You observe what is happening in your mind and then your body, and you ask, are these thoughts true or a fact? There are many times with things that you have identified with that this will be hard. I deserve to be mad. I can't believe they did that. Why would they do that to me? Keep tracing it. Your worthiness is at question. That's why you're there. There's no denying that it's hard though. Very hard. Simple, but hard. Still hard for me, even at certain times. But you will eventually learn it's worth the effort, and just to be straight up with you, it's the only way. What else are you going to do? You will eventually start easing up on yourself, and therefore others some. And I'll be honest, this one was big for me because I am such a perfectionist to the extreme. This will be slow though, especially if you're very perfectionistic. You will not think this is changing. And then one day you just realize you're able to forgive yourself for a mistake much faster than you used to be able to do. I'll just be honest with you. If I made a mistake, the two areas that are critical in my life, being a husband and a father and work, if I made a mistake, there's a chance it would eat me up 3 days. I wouldn't get over it. Strong chance. Now, the truth is, I can get over it sometimes immediately and much, much quicker. Never 3 days. Most of the time, not a day. Sometimes not even 5 minutes. That's been the biggest difference. Now, I'm not saying I'm not going to be mad at myself at the beginning and why did I do that? Why didn't you do that? You know better than that. Ask those questions to myself. But then I'm going to go back to the process quick.
Well, elaborate on that just a little bit if you could.
Okay.
In other words, we live in a society where while you can process it that way, those that we wronged, your family, somebody at the job site that looks at that mistake as being critical and keeps bringing it back up, or doesn't let it, while you can categorize it and say, okay, I see it for what it was, and it's gone. That, you said it used to take you 3 days to process. Sometimes I see within families that, one might say, hey, just get over it, I'm done with that. But the other party within that relationship is saying, no, I still got a bag of rocks and I'm throwing.
Yep.
How do you?
Well, the truth is, we got to be honest. There's situations that are heavier than others. Okay, so if it's a heavy situation, a really wrong thing. I mean, that's not a 3-day thing. That can be a 6 months to year to 5 year working through process. Yeah. Let's be honest. Let's call a spade a spade. However, I'm talking about more of those daily things, if that makes sense, that you constantly let eat you up, and it was a simple mistake, and it was a nobody's fault mistake. It just happened. But to your point of if someone keeps bringing it up, yes, it's going to make it more challenging for you. Now, if it's someone that you can, you're going to have to continue the practice. You're going to have to continue because it's going to take you there. If somebody says, I cannot believe you did that the next day, your thoughts are going to go there. They're going to. So you're going to have to, you're either going to go with them or you're going to, okay, I understand this and I understand why they feel that way. And you kind of have to look at it in all honesty as the person and see, remember what we talked about, everybody's doing the best that they can with what they currently know, believe it or not. And their best may be awful. But that may be the best that they can currently do with that. And sometimes you have to look at that and, almost say, well, they're not there yet. Does that make sense? And you're not saying I'm superior. I'm this mindful guy who's, the right hand of Jesus. It's nothing like that. It's just simply they haven't unlearned enough yet. If it's something simple. Now, if it's heavy and harmful, and like we know it, those serious things, and that's another level. That's a work through. That may be counseling. That's going to be a lot of stuff. Yeah. That help? So, result 2, you will crave alone time even more than now, but value your time with loved ones even more than you do now. Now that sounds like a contradiction, but it's not. You will cut other things out that you realize never mattered to make time for yourself and loved ones. You will understand what Jesus was talking about and asking you to do in a brand new way. Your amazement of Jesus' wisdom and your appreciation of what he did on earth will make you even more emotional spiritually. I will say this, the Gospels are my favorite part of the Bible. Those that know me, Matthew and I have talked about this 1,000 times. Not that I don't read the rest of the Bible, but the Gospels are my favorite part. And I've read the Gospels, I don't know, 1,000 times probably. And 10 years ago, I read the Gospels totally different than I do now. I don't know. I didn't set out to do that. It just, I don't know. Jesus feels more attainable. I don't know how to describe it. Like more here than as opposed to on a pedestal way off in the sky somewhere that I can never reach and 500 million miles away. I don't know how to describe that any differently than that. So that's just been a result for me that I value. It's been helpful. You will feel closer to God and all that he made in his image. You will finally feel what that means in the deep sense. It doesn't mean you don't get upset with people. And it doesn't mean that you don't see their flaws. It just, you see yourself in them more. Like we talked about last week. And this is a big one that may surprise you, and you will not know what this means till it starts happening. You will fight evil things less because you don't have to fight it as much. The pull for things such as pure physically sexual desires that are not correct, drugs, alcohol, to get out of your mind so that you can get away from yourself. Make yourself bigger by running others down. All those things lessen. It will not go away because you're a human being and they go back and forth in cycles like we talked about. But you're human and you came here to overcome these things. That's why they won't go away completely. But instead of this feeling like a fight, this is the biggest difference. It feels like a fight your whole life, and especially like as a young person, it feels like a fight. But they just seem to fall away. Because you realize these things never mattered, and you were doing them to distract yourself from yourself. It's just what you were doing. And that's been the helpful. But again, it's cycles. You will have cycles of that, and it's not, it's not all or none. And this goes back to week 4, this next one. You will be able to live with the results more. It does not mean that you do not do everything in your power to get the results that you feel are God's will. But after you've done all that, you just let it be. That's the difference. Everyone who knows me knows I am still a person I'm the most proactive human being on the planet. Okay? Jennifer and I have to go out of town today for work, and I'm like all the stuff we're doing to get ready. You ought to see my calendar. Okay? So much stuff on it leading up to it. And that gives me freedom from stress. But I know I've said everything I need to say. I've done everything I need to do. And then it is what it is. I just let it be. I put it in God's hands after that. I don't know if that makes any sense to any of you, but it's to Jimmy's question that he asked that day. How do you be an elder doing this, basically, when you know there's things you want to do? And that would be my answer. Dive yourself into the Word. Dive yourself into prayer. Prepare the best of your ability, and then let it be. You either trust God or you don't. Last one. You quit fighting to change who you are as much. You realize you have tendencies and conditioning and why. You finally start accepting this, but also realize you have the ability to change some naturally with this process. Fighting who you are, or fighting anything for that matter, will never change anything without there being some negativity tainting it. Little changes I will use the word will happen to you naturally if you do this, that you wanted, but you still accept the parts of you that you are. So I'll go back to me as an example. I am classic Enneagram 1, and I think probably if I'd have taken the test 10 years ago, I'd have been a wing 2, the people pleaser side. Now I'm a wing 9. And not that a 9 is perfect, 9 has flaws. However, I had to balance my 1 with 9. It was killing me. If that makes any sense, I had to at times just say, okay, it's okay. Just let it be. I don't want it right now. I don't want the fight right now. I don't want to judge myself right now. I'm just going to let it go. So I had to balance it with the 9, where the people-pleasing side, along with the perfectionistic side, it was like a cycle on steroids. It was just eating me up. So I say that to say, I've accepted I'm a 1. My calendar is going to be perfect and complete. It's just going to be that way. Okay? That's all right. When you see my daily schedule that I give you in a minute, you don't want that for your daily schedule. That's okay. That's totally fine. I've accepted who I am, but I've been able to also, these things, offset it, if that makes sense. I don't know if offset's the right word, but just ease into it. Also, take the top off, or maybe a better way to say it. So disclaimers regarding all those results. Boy, that sounded fabulous and perfect, didn't it? You will struggle. And sometimes a lot. Again, always remember this when you're struggling. We came here to struggle. That's why we're on earth. We came to learn lessons, but ultimately realize we are made in God's image and should connect and fully submit to Him. If your life was perfect situations and perfect circumstances, would you submit to God? You would need to. Your life is supposed to be hard, up, down, challenging, and you have a lot of questions to make you realize there's God. And that's why God's here. But every time you're going through the hard stuff, remember that. That's why you're here. Why you came. Now, this is a two steps forward, 1 step back process. I've said that a lot. I said a lot in week 1. You're going to make some progress if you do this, and then you're later going to wonder, did you regress? Or am I back at the beginning? Do I even do this? That's part of it. Just keep going. Keep going. I'll use myself as an example again. So picture a ladder. It's like going up the ladder. And there's times where I don't have any clue what step I'm on. That makes any sense to you? I don't try to think about what step I'm on. I just know I ain't at the bottom anymore. Does that make sense? But there's times that I'm closer to the bottom, and then there's times I'm closer to the top. And I think that's part of it. But remember this, every time that you realize you have regressed, man, I'm all caught up in it again. I'm caught up in this world. I'm caught up in my thoughts. I'm caught up in my emotions. I don't even know what mindfulness means anymore. When you feel like that, because you're going to, when you feel like that, that's a success. Just like the meditation. What did I tell you during the meditation? Every time you're thinking and you realize you're thinking, that's a success. because you just became mindful. Even if it's just for a second. You just became mindful. So remember, that's what you're trying to do. And then go back to keep seeing what is happening in real life right now. Okay, so a daily schedule to go forward. Again, I'm not going to tell you to take my schedule. I just don't have another schedule to give you because, I can only give you my schedule. I don't know another schedule to give you. So I'm going to tell you, and this is more of an example, so that you can set an intention to have a schedule. Because here's what I'm going to say. If you don't set an intention to have a schedule, no progress.
So what?
If you don't set an intention to have a schedule with this, or set time to do these things that we talked about, the mindfulness practices, you will have no progress. This will just be intellectual, and you gain some knowledge, some very interesting knowledge, and that's it. Okay? So, this is what I do. Doesn't mean it's what you do. I promise you I'm not telling you this to say you should do this. I just want you to know how an intention works. So I do this every work day. On the weekends it differs some, but it's generally the same. First thing I do is get up and eat a banana and drink a protein shake. And then I read my truth realizations and pray. And then I meditate anywhere from 12 to 45 minutes, depending on the day of the week. What's the meditation? I taught it to you. Deep box breathing. When I say deep box breathing, I mean I'm doing the box, but I'm also feeling the inner body at the same time. I want to feel the inner body as much of that meditation as I can.
Do you control your own schedule? Is your secretary allowed to put anything on your schedule? Or do you control it completely?
This is me.
I wish I'd have done that.
This is me. I have to control my whole department schedule. And then I physically work out mindfully with emotional release for 35 minutes. That probably, you have no idea what that means. If we do this small group thing and you want to ask me about that, I feel free. I'd gladly answer your question, but we're not going to talk about that here. Then I do yoga or stretching for 3 to 10 minutes, depending on the day of the week. Obviously, I have more time on the weekend. Then I make a protein shake, get an apple, and eat it on the way to work. Sometimes I have to take Sarah Kate to school. Depends. I will next year as someone goes to college. A lot more.
Losing our track.
Then as my computer is booting up, I meditate for 3 minutes just to settle myself that I'm at work now. And then I work. And I work hard. Those people who work with me will tell you I work hard. Very hard. And then I meditate for 5 minutes at some point around lunch. It might, as Randy laughed at that week, it might be in the bathroom if that's the only place that somebody can't find me. Spring, I may have to go to the bathroom. People are looking for me all the time. And then I meditate for 12 to 45 minutes after work is finished for that day or the night. I don't care what time that is. I don't care if it's 4:30 when I'm supposed to get off, or if it's 9:30 like it is occasionally, or 7:30 or 6:30 or whatever. I'm going to meditate for 12 to 45 minutes at some point before I go to bed. Doesn't mean I do it right then. Maybe I got to get to an event just like you. But at some point, I'm going to. I like to do it when the workday ends so that I can be present for my family. There's times I can't do that, just like you. So I have to do it when I can. And then I did add this. I have started, if I was able to meditate pretty close to when I ended the workday, then I like to do about at least 3 minutes right before I read a spiritual text at night before I go to bed. I'm going to read for at least 10 minutes. Sometimes it's a lot longer, just depends. Again, weekend, whatever. Spiritual text can mean a lot of things. It can be Bible, can be a lot of spiritual books. And then addition that I added. I seek to fill my inner body, as I described earlier, all day long while doing anything, but especially while in a meeting, working on my computer, or making a decision. To me, that's key. I'll be out of my head less. And I'll do what I'm trying to do more correct. And I'll have more peace throughout it. Now, doing this around life situations, because life happens. There are parts of the year where I wake up at 3 a.m. to work. It's just a fact. There are times I work until 9 at night. I still do this entire process. I say even then, especially then, because boy, I need it then. Otherwise, my conditioning comes back and I start becoming that old fight or flight person again. Now, this may sound really regimented to many of you. I understand that. It fits my Enneagram 1 side. But if you don't design a non-negotiable schedule, you will not carry this forward. It's just that simple, especially at the beginning. Now, for moms and dads that have to get kids ready in the morning and all that stuff, we remember that. Okay? We're not in that stage now, but we've been in that stage a long time. I know that's challenging for you. I know what the mornings are like. Your schedule's not going to look like mine. That's okay. So here's the non-negotiables. You've got to find time to meditate or do something mindful in the morning, or the day will grab you. And then you've got to do something at least near the end of the day, or you won't sleep. Unless you're one of those lucky people. Those two are key, and if you can somehow fit some other stuff in the middle of the day, then that helps. Again, just set a schedule that you will do. Okay? Now, I want to ask you this. How many times in the scripture do we read that Jesus was by himself and praying? They were looking for him and they couldn't find him. Jesus took the time to be with himself and God. And you can't? That's selfish? What?
So true.
If everybody takes the time to dive into themselves and feel closer to God, what kind of world would we have? So that's selfish? It's the most unselfish thing there is. It's the opposite of selfish. It's selfish not to do it. But be careful, as I talked about, if you make this another doing, you may dread it. You'll have to do that at the beginning. But then as you start seeing some of these changes, man, you're going to want to do it. I mean, you will. You'll realize you don't like who you are without it.
I don't like who I am.
Now, I want to do two things as we end this. Many of you had mentioned to me about continuing meeting in here, totally different format, as a group discussion kind of thing, more like small group where we like sit around in a circle and we just talk. No prep stuff by Ryan. We just walk in here and talk, ask questions. The elders have said that's okay if people want to do it. So here's what I'm going to say. After class, I put some paper right there. If you want to do that, if you want to come and do that, because I need to know whether to tell the elders and Matthew we're going to do that, right? So sign up or not. You can email me if you feel better. Email me at rkirkendall@gmail.com. Either one. I just need to tell Matthew something quick, I would think, the next day or two. So just let me know. And then we can ask all these questions or anything as you have insights and just kind of talk for people who want to pursue this further. Okay? I wanted to make time to give you time to ask some questions today or whatever, but it don't look like we're going to have much of that. So I apologize for that. Is there any last comment anybody wants to make?
Yeah, sign me up, bro.
All right, we'll put you down. All right, well, thank y'all for attending. I hope this has meant something to you, but I've really enjoyed doing it with
It
you.
have, bro.
Hey, welcome back, my brother. Good to be there.
I do.